Want to save time on meal prep now that it's back to school time? Watch this video to learn my top 5 meal prep time-saving hacks that are especially useful at this back to school time, no matter what that looks like for you this year. Hey everybody, it's Allison, Prep Dish founder. So I'm gonna jump right in with these tips, keeping in mind that back to school may look differently for a lot of you this year, whether it's school at home or school back in the classroom. It doesn't really matter. The meals at home, the more efficient you can be with those, the better. So I feel like these tips are going to help no matter what that back to school time is going to look like for you this year. So number 1 tip is to have a plan. So this can look a little bit differently. So you could plan, a week at a time, a few days at a time, 2 weeks at a time. But the main key is to have some sort of plan and to not wait until dinner time to decide what you're going to be eating for dinner that night. So the more you can plan ahead, the more time you are going to save and the more efficient you're going to be with your meal prep. If you want, I do have instructions below on how to get a free meal prep meal plan where I've done all the planning for you, so you can check that out in the show notes. So the second tip is to buy pre-chopped vegetables. So this is something that can save a ton of time, and whether or not you normally buy pre-chopped, if this is a season in your life where you're really busy, this is the time to check out the pre-chopped veggies. So they're just as healthy. You'll want to read the ingredients, but most of the produce is just the plain chopped vegetable. Sometimes there's a little bit of a price premium, but again, if this is a season of your life where things are really hectic, buying some pre-chopped onions or the already chopped broccoli that you can just throw on a sheet pan and roast might be worth it. So definitely don't overlook buying the pre-chopped version of veggies. They also have a lot of different things like spiralized veggies and things like that that can really save you a lot of time and make your meal prep just that much quicker. The third tip that I have is whenever you're making a recipe, double or even triple that recipe. So that doesn't mean that you end up eating the same thing over and over and over again. There's ways around this. So you can say double a recipe for dinner and save the second portion to have a few nights later, so it's not back to back, depending on what the meal is. So if it's a lasagna or a soup or something like that, you could even freeze it and save it for a few weeks later to just avoid eating the same thing over and over and over again. A lot of times I really do triple. I've even quadrupled recipes just because we will eat that dinner, and then sometimes we'll have leftovers for lunch. And if I can, I love to squeeze an extra meal that I can either stick in the freezer or save for an additional dinner later that week. So anytime you're looking at a meal or a recipe, especially if it's a tried and true one that your family enjoys, look and see, can I do a larger portion? A lot of times it's not that much work. You already have the blender out, you're already making the sauce or the marinade. So just increasing the portion size is actually not that much more work. So really look through strategically and think, gosh, can I increase the amount of this dish and really save my future self some time? So that is my third trick. And then for the fourth one, I'm gonna have to look over here. I don't have all of these completely memorized. Oh, fourth one, very important. So schedule your meal prep time. So if you were just know in the back of your mind, oh, I need to do some meal prep, and it never happens, one, that's exhausting. Sure, constantly thinking, oh, I need to do this thing, and you're not doing it. But two, a lot of times it just doesn't happen. So if you can look at your calendar and schedule a time where you know that you can reliably get in the kitchen and spend an hour or two doing some chopping, tackling some recipes, then it's really going to make that something that you can just put off of your mind because it's scheduled, so you don't have to keep thinking about it. It's like I have my plan and now I have the time that I'm gonna do it. I don't have to use brain power to think about meals because I know it's going to happen. Another key with this tip is to share with your family when you're going to do that meal prep time. So if it's a specific evening, maybe let your husband know I have a shared calendar, so I'll put it on my calendar so he knows that's when I'm doing my meal prep. Or, you know, if you have kids, make sure that they're aware if you're gonna have them in the kitchen or not. Just like have a plan for what you're doing and make sure that everyone in the family is on board, that this is the time that the meal prep is gonna happen this week, so that it happens. Because once that happens, the rest of the week goes so much easier. So really getting that scheduled in and having a reliable time for meal prep is a huge key. And then the fifth tip, so this may sound similar to the earlier one about like increasing the recipe size, but it's actually different. So this is make something once, but use it twice. So this isn't the exact replica of a dish, but this is actually taking a piece of a meal and using it through multiple meals. So an example would be if I'm making a pesto. So I'll make a pesto and maybe on Monday I use it with salmon. And then I save it a few days later and have it either on pork chops, or maybe I toss my roasted vegetables with the pesto. So then that way, yes, I'm using it twice, but it feels like a totally different meal because I'm using it in a different way. Another example of this is maybe at the beginning of the week, each week you rotate, you know, what carb you're gonna have at your meals. So, you know, one week you just make a big thing of rice and use that on the side, but you have different proteins and veggies. Or the next week you use quinoa and so on. So that's another way you can, you know, make one thing, use it multiple times. Another example is to make your protein. So an example would be like a pork roast or something like that, or carnitas recipe. That's one, I'll link that one in the show notes because I've done a video on the carnitas. But with that one, you could make the carnitas, maybe the first night you have them as like a bowl, like over, you know, rice and kind of like a carnitas bowl. And the next night it's a lettuce wrap, or, you know, at lunch you have it over a salad. So that way you're switching up how you're using the protein. So it's not like you're repeating the thing over and over again, but you are being more efficient with your time because you're making something once, using it multiple times, and it just helps mealtime go a lot better. So again, some of these tips go back to that number one, which is, you know, have a plan at the beginning of the week, because the more you can sit down and spend a few minutes being strategic about what you're gonna make and when, then throughout the week, you'll just find that you save so much time by doing this. So hopefully these tips are helpful. Let me know in the comments which ones you plan on implementing. And if you are trying to prep for that crazy back to school time, I would recommend also stocking up on some freezer meals. So I've done a few videos and have free downloads on this. So one is a crock pot freezer meal. I'll link that video here. And with that one, you spend a few hours, but you have like your freezer stocked full of all these like basically dump meals, or you just dump everything in a crock pot or instant pot. So that's a great one to do. And then another one, so this is another tip that people often overlook, is breakfast. So if you're trying to get back into a routine like back to school, you don't want to overlook breakfast. So I have some freeze ahead breakfast ideas that can make those mornings just so much easier because you can have your breakfast meals in the freezer. So check that video out as well. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with a friend. I will see you in the next one.